Hi everyone, welcome to Soulprint. Thank you very, very much for being here. Today I want to do three minis, um, and just take a look at the countries slash leaders of Russia, the United States, and Canada, because it strikes me that there are very, very different ideas going on within those three countries. So I'm going to channel this so it can be zippy fast, I hope. Thank you very much for being here. And don't forget to put your questions in the comment section below for Pendulum Friday. Alrighty, tell me about Russia. So, as I'm sure you know, um, in the last couple of days, Russia has flown drones over Poland, but they also, within I guess the last 24 hours or so, have flown drones over Romania. Um, So is this him being confident and cocky as a leader, or is this the reaction of somebody who doesn't see that he's getting what he wants and is getting cranky? Let's find out. So let's start with the people of that country. Um, you know, they're done. Like they're fed up. The problem is they don't have a method, I think, of voicing their displeasure, without ending up um, kind of behind bars. So their frustrations are kept quieter. They talk between friends and family, but there's a lot of caution. But they are very quickly getting to a place where, they've lost their fathers, their husbands, their sons. And this isn't getting any better. Their economy is struggling. And, the wannabe czar is in there, making friends with, China and North Korea because, dictators are us, seems to have had some sort of an annual meeting or get together. I think that they're trying to figure out how to solidify and strengthen their own power while continuing to do what they can to destroy um, democracies around the world. So, the reason that they've started out with the comment about the people of Russia being sort of fed up is that there is going to come a time in the not too distant future where he will no longer be sitting on his pretend throne, and the people of Russia are at that point going to demand a different kind of government. They're going to demand that they not, you know, be a democracy in name only when they're literally, held almost at gunpoint and told how to vote. They will be ready for Russia to take its place or start to take its place and rebuild it in a way that nothing can prevent the past from repeating itself if you have enough like-minded people who come together and control information. But um there is the idea that they are going to start the recovery process, and much like Germany of the 1930s, it's going to take a while because this was so unprovoked. And it was nothing more than a power grab, for land and for power and for, routes to the water for shipping. Now, Ukraine, on the other hand, is also going to start its recovery process, but they're going to have a tremendous amount of ally support. And they're going to rebuild that country as not only a testament to their strength, but also to um, create a country that the people are going to want to visit. The people are going to want to see. People are going to want to marvel at, how quickly they were able to recover and rebuild. And on the other hand, you have another country beside them who is going to be struggling, but in some ways with very similar hopes and dreams. That's coming from the people. But for right now, you have a leader that is starting to find himself backed into a corner, backed into walls where he can't maneuver. And so he's trying to strengthen his relations with like-minded leaders so that he can continue to draw in the resources, the money, the war supplies, whatever it is, from other countries, right? I mean, it's only, to my knowledge, although Russia does it too, actually, but China and North Korea that have parades that are nothing more than a display of military might and power. Um, contrasting that to parades that other countries have and enjoy. Okay. So there is growth potential, there is recovery potential, but it is going to take a while. And I have to say, as far as the wannabe czar goes, um, he's not he's not in great health, but it's sort of what I'm being told this, but he's also not as bad as people would like or hope he or think he is. So as of right now, I think that he's still got a little bit of longevity in his position. I don't know when the next election or whatever comes around, although it doesn't really matter. Um, but it feels like 2026 is going to be a very, very difficult year for him to survive. Whether that is literally with his life, whether that is politically, whether that is economically for the country, but it's going to be a very difficult period for him. Be curious to know astrologically what that might look like. All right, let's take a quick look at Canada. Because Canada, with their new prime minister, Mark Carney, has taken some very, very different ideas and very different attitudes in terms of how to um, handle what's going on in the United States. You know, 45 wanted to create such economic hardship for the country that it would literally, beg the United States to please take us as your 51st state. And, that's okay. Give us no health care, give us a dictatorial leader, give us, et cetera, et cetera. That's not working because what the bottom line is Carney has a extensive and impressive resume he understands business, he understands negotiation, and most importantly, he understands when a supplier or a buyer is not um, reliable anymore. That what you do is you flip and you find new customers, and that's what's going on. And so, things that the United States has long depended on, like electricity, electrical power, lumber, um, oil, have all been aluminum. That's a really big one because that's impacting everything from, you know, your can of pop to, I don't know, building really big important things. So this pivot is taking place, whether um, 45 is happy about it or not. And certainly there was this idea that Canada would be compliant, and they are not. So there are oil deals now being, uh, instead of 90% of Canadians oil going into the United States, there are plans in place for it to go to Japan. So the oil isn't traveling from Alberta into, Seattle, Washington, etc. It is traveling to Japan. Um, Trump said that, Canadians, we don't need Canadians lumber. Well, unfortunately, you do, and that's being cut off. Um, and so things are not going particularly well for the other side of the negotiation. I'm not suggesting that Canada hasn't taken hits because they have. Our unemployment is up, um, and inflation is starting to creep up. But the reality is there is somebody in leadership who not only understands how business works, but is capable of the pivot. Because a lot of politicians are not. But he doesn't come from a political background. He comes from a business background, but not a failed businessman like somebody else. And so, or a banking background, I think would probably be even more accurate. Um, he is still being well received by a lot. His approval rating is above water. I'll say it that way. And he has proven that he is more than able to work with the premiers of all the provinces and the indigenous groups, the First Nations groups, to create an environment where everybody is on the playing field, okay, and everybody has input. You also have situations where he has been able to draw or um, solidify plans that were already in place by some really significant US companies who, while they are not shutting down their operation in one place and reopening them in Canada, they are creating significant components of their company, of their product, have moved into Canada, are now, they have offices and they have factories and they have buildings, and it's across Canada. It's not just in Toronto proper or Ottawa proper. So far, the country is sort of holding its own. Um, and he continues to do things that, unless you are a Maple MAGA, um, seem to be resonating and people are responding well to it. It is, the bottom line for Canada looks to be that within the next year to 3, you're going to see the product that Canada produces and ships out going to new um, countries. And the stable US trading partner is no more, because if there's one thing somebody from a banking background doesn't like, it's instability. And that is exactly what has been rained on Canadians' head by that person in the South. So for right now, Canada looks like it will continue its pivot. They will resolve issues, between provinces, between um, negotiations with other countries. Things are going to come together. It's going to take a while to recover. Absolutely no question about it. There's just a lot that has gotten really shaken up. But we're in a position where we create enough product that we can supply our own needs and then ship it out. And when our neighbor to the south became so unstable and frankly so aggressive and have shown absolutely complete disregard for the law or for existing trade agreements, um, the Canadian response, frankly, was not at all what he expected or thought would happen. And that response is giving other countries a little bit of cover so that they also can start pushing back against what is being shoved down their throat. All right, let's take a look at the US and its leader. I use the term very, very loosely. So, what you have there is a situation where more and more people are starting to recognize and feel the impact of several things almost at once. You have the tariff situation, which is raising prices. And they're the ones that are paying, the consumers, the purchasers are the ones that are paying the price. Um, you have manufacturing companies down in the States can't keep their staff because they don't have the work, or they can't find the people because Trump is busy deporting everybody. The tensions in the United States continue to escalate. And as they continue to escalate, particularly as they continue to push back against 45, you're going to see increased evidence of his complete inability to be in the position he is in, his declining cognitive and physical deterioration. And I am taking into consideration the fact that he's 78 years old. I mean, things you slow down, but there's a difference between slowing down and what appears to be going on with him. It's becoming more and more frustrating for him that when he parades himself out in public to these sporting events or whatever it is, he's getting booed at. And it's going out live. Right? So it's not even a matter of, well, we can edit that out. Um, and he finds that kind of rejection very difficult to take, the process to stomach. And so what you're going to see is a lot of, it's not my fault, it's that person's fault or that area's fault or that country's fault or that company's fault. It's not me. There's going to be that. And there is also going to be a lot of a very aggressive sort of behavior from him. I heard the United States has its budget renewal deal coming up in just a few weeks, and the Democrats are saying these are the things that we're not going to back down on, and they're getting a lot of push from their own voters saying grow a spine and push back. And their messaging is weak at best. And so they're in a catch-22, because if they shut down the government, which is the threat, they're not savvy enough. I'm sorry, but they're not savvy enough to message it in such a way so that people understand that they're doing it because he can't run the country. And he's flushing it, frankly, just right down a toilet. But in any case, there was, what he said was, well, just don't bother even dealing with the Democrats. Just ignore them. They don't have a say in this. And to some degree, he's not exactly wrong, because why? Well, because the Republicans hold all those branches. They have the House, they have the Senate, and they have the Oval. So he has, if they can hold the party together, in some ways they don't need the Democrats, which is, they've sort of become a little bit of a paper tiger, because they're not pushing where they could be pushing, and their messaging is getting lost in the translation. So are the Dems going to get it together over the next 3 or 4 months? And I'm getting a solid yes. I don't know what that means, and I don't know how that will present itself, but I'm getting a yes. Are the Republicans going to continue to face members of their party retiring, or flat out voting against what the Republicans want? And that is also a yes. So as you have the Democrats gaining strength, you have the Republicans saying, I can't vote for that, or I can't agree to that, or this has gotten so nutsoid, I I can't be in this political arena anymore. And whether they just want to spend more time with their family, that seems to be the most common one, whether there are health concerns, or frankly, in some cases, whether there's concerns that they even have a hope in hell being reelected, because they are complicit, particularly Republican, they're complicit in doing what he says he wants. So a final thing that I just want to look at, because I want to just sort of skip back to NATO for a minute, and what um, may be being decided or talked about with regards to these drones flying over another country's airspace. Um, and it feels like, again, there's going to be a tremendous amount of support from NATO allies, because particularly the ones like around Russia and in Europe itself, because they're not, here in Canada, Russia's like far, far away. But for a lot of people, it's like right next door. And so, and we're starting to really understand about bad neighbors. I just got to say that, like, so, but anyways, so there's going to be a lot of support for those countries, and a lot of finally coming together and saying, you crossed that line, and that is now enough. So NATO, it feels like it's going to get a little bit more robust and a little bit more muscular, and Allies are going to continue to sort of step up to that plate and say, this isn't acceptable. And there have been enough examples in the last 9 months, never mind his previous administration, where more and more it's becoming blatantly obvious that the way to handle him is to get into his face. You deal with a bully by being strong. You don't deal with a bully by saying, okay, whatever you want, let me accommodate that. And slowly but surely, the United States is losing its power. And as such, you're going to see other countries stepping in and pushing back, in some cases, almost as a united or a solid front. So, those are your minis. Things aren't going great anywhere, but you know what? It's not World War III. There isn't going to be one, or certainly energetically doesn't look like it's going to be one now. Um, in part, because the populations of countries are younger, and in a lot of ways, they just don't accept that war is the solution. Okay, that's what I've got for you. Hopefully that's helpful. Thank you very, very much for being here and hanging in there till the very end. I do appreciate that. And of course, always thank you for the likes and the comments. My subscribers are increasing again, so thank you very much to those who have made that happen. And of course, those who have continued to support me over the years. All right, until next time, take care and be well. We'll see you then. Bye bye.